I'm going to begin sharing my trip to Florence, Italy with Palazzo Medici Riccardi because it's my video and that was one of my favorite places. This Grand Medici Palace was built by Cosimo the Elder around 1444 and is now a museum. The private chapel inside showcases beautifully crafted seating areas and marble inlaid with Medici symbolism, along with some of the most vivid frescoes I've ever seen. They depict the biblical story of the wise men and are the reason that it's called Chapel of the Magi. They were painted around 1460 by Benozzo Gozzoli. Their gift shop sells the Florentine lion known as Marzocco, so you should get one. Down the street was a third generation maker of Florentine style papers and books, so I bought a notebook. Then we went back to our Airbnb because it had a fully stocked fridge and we wanted to have a little bit of lunch. While we're here, let me go ahead and give you a tour. The owner was super sweet. I'll share the link to her listing below. She lives upstairs and this was her grandmother's home. The next morning, we visited the Uffizi. Go early in the day as you'll need 2 to 4 hours for this place. It will be crowded, but it houses some of the masterpieces of both the classical and the Renaissance worlds. I've seen many of these paintings and books over the years, but nothing beats seeing them in person. Also, you get to see like the side and the back of hairstyles on statues, which is key to improving your Roman kit, right? So embrace the crowds and manage them as best you can. The views of the Arno from the Uffizi are glorious. And if you get hungry while you're there for hours, there is a cafeteria where you can have a delightful lunch. And see views of the Duomo from your seat. It was too cold for us to be outside, but I did snap a few photos. Speaking of the cold, I did end up buying a wretched tourist jacket because it was really frigid. After the Uffizi, we went to Ponte Vecchio, which is the bridge across the Arno where shops line the street and it's known for jewelry. I almost bought this ring. We shopped all the way from Ponte Vecchio back towards our Airbnb, and found this little place to buy really cute purses, as well as this place to eat. The food was delicious. We had a couple of courses along with several glasses of wine. But the most exciting part was we were entertained by the waiter. Like, he was seriously a character. After dinner, you have to have your digestivi, which I chose limoncello. We also ran into the owner of this coat shop and almost bought a fur coat. The next day, I went with a friend to the Medici chapels to learn a little bit more about the burial place of the Medici, including Duke Alessandro de Medici. Here are Serena and I in front of the final resting place of Duke Alessandro de Medici. He was buried with who was thought to be his father at the time, but who was probably just his uncle. I highly recommend Serena, and I use her for all of my private tours. We did pop into the Duomo briefly, and we ended our tour of the sites of Duke Alessandro de Medici at Palazzo Vecchio. There, she showed me a statue made in the likeness of Duke Alessandro. And she also showed me a painting of him in that same Roman style. And I took several photos trying to get a close-up despite the bright sunlight. If you'd like to learn more about Alessandro Medici, I recommend Il Moro by director Daphne Di Cento. The next morning, we rented a Fiat and headed to Monselice. There we stayed at a medieval abbey turned castle turned wine resort. It was off-season for the winery, but we did get a private tasting. And just look at the key we had for our area of the castle. I definitely got to check an item off my bucket list. And the grounds were so beautiful. We did get to take a sneak peek at their old cellars and see some of the equipment they used for winemaking back when it was an abbey. The next morning, we drove to Arca Petrarca to try to visit Petrarch's house, which was closed. So we went back and got in the spa instead. Yes, this abbey turned castle turned wine resort has its own private spa with beautiful views of the surrounding countryside and mountains in the distance. They even have outdoor hot springs pools with thermal water from the Alps. My guests and I had an absolutely fabulous time here in Monselice. The next morning, we packed up the car and drove to Ferrara.